and it's all yours. Take it away.
Okay, well, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you had an amazing day today. And what better way to spend the closing of the business day or your school day than to learn something important? And that is how to interview in this new normal, right? So I wanted to introduce our team, myself and then my team, but I wanted to introduce first. We have Mr. Bill Lickis, who is our manager for recruitment and employee engagement at the Las Vegas Valley Water District. He's joining us today. I also have my colleagues Jessica Brown and Narissa Gonzaga, who are also human resources analysts at the Las Vegas Valley Water District. My name is Maria Ubaldo, and I'm very excited to have this webinar with all of you. This is very close to my heart. If you're wondering what I do for a living, I'm a human resources analyst at LVVWD. Three of my main functions are recruitment, outreach, and internship and work study programs. So you're wondering, hey, what is recruitment? So our job is to find the best talents for our organization. So if you're looking for a job, we're the right people, to talk to. Okay. Outreach. What is outreach? So just like what I'm doing today. So what if my main functions at the water district is to engage with the community. So I work a lot with community partners, schools K through 12, and then universities, colleges, and many more. I do a lot of presentations like this virtually, and then before a lot of like in-person workshops. And I also handle the internship and work study program. It's very close to my heart. Just so you know, NSC is doing an amazing job in providing us with interns and also working with us in this program that we have. Later today, we will be discussing about our internship program. It's perfect opportunity for you to ask those questions, especially if you've always thought of applying at the water district, but you're kind of scared or you don't know where to start. So this is an opportunity for you to ask those questions. Okay, so again, hello. So what's the title of our webinar for today? It's called The Art of Interviewing in the New Normal. So with COVID-19, it's really a disruption of our normal lives. We used to be able to hang out with friends, do our homework together in person, go to class in person, but now almost everything is virtual for safety's sake, right? So we thought, what kind of workshop should we do at this time? And I think that this is a very timely presentation for all of you. So I hope that you can gain a lot from this webinar. I would ask that perhaps if you have a notebook or a pen, keep that handy with you right now so you can jot down notes. If you're more of like, I don't really write down things, I'd rather use my tablet, my phone, or any other gadget, you can do that too. It's going to be very important to jot down notes. And also, this presentation is going to be available in YouTube anyway. So you can watch the replay of this webinar later on. Okay, so what is our agenda for today? This is composed of three parts. The first part would be things that we need to know about virtual interviews, things to prepare before an interview, and the most common interview questions and ideal answers. Part two of our webinar today is an introduction to the Las Vegas Valley Water District, as well as presenting to you our mission, vision, values, and an introduction to our internship program, and also our current job openings. And the third part will be in Q&A. So you're wondering, part one, there's only three things we're going to talk about today, Maria? Yes, there's a lot of things to cover when it comes to interviewing, even with virtual interviews, but we want you to focus on the most important aspects. In fact, I will be providing references later so that after the webinar, you can read a lot of articles that has to do with virtual interviews and you're going to read more information. But I think it's very important to be able to digest the information and to hone in into like the most important concepts. Part two, I promise you, I'm not going to try to bore you. So part two, if I love videos, so it's going to be three YouTube videos from our Las Vegas Valley Water District YouTube channel. So we also have our YouTube channel. We're actually cool like that. So I hope that you enjoy those videos later. And there's ton more videos that you can see. And we hope that you can visit our YouTube channel even after this webinar. Okay. Part 3 is Q&A. So like Noelle said earlier, we will be answering your questions at the end of the presentation. If there's a lot of questions or there are questions that we can't answer yet, because maybe we need to research more, we will provide the answers at a later time. Okay, so I hope that is helpful. Okay, so we're gonna have an activity. Okay, so if you like videos, here you are. I have a YouTube video for you. This is a little funny, actually exaggerated. So forgive the exaggeration, but this activity will entail you using the chat box. So I will be playing the video, and what I would like each of you to do is be the interviewer. So the perspective of the interviewer. What do you think is an area for concern in this video in relation to this interviewee? Is there something wrong? If you were the interviewer, would you hire this particular interviewee? And if you're not, why? Or if you are, why? Okay, so you ready? Okay, I'll be playing the video now.
Amy, it says you are trained in technology. That's very good. Are you adept at Excel?
No.
PowerPoint?
No.
Publisher?
Not really.
Exactly in what area of technology are you proficient?
Snapchat, Pinterest, Instagram, Vine, Twitter. You know, the big ones.
I'm surprised you didn't say Facebook.
That's for old people, like my parents. That's funny.
Well, Amy, when you're working for me, you have to have those kind of research skills because I'll send you things for you to comb through and get the answers and send them to me. So for that, you got to be really good at technology.
For stuff like that, no problem. I'll just ask Siri.
You'll just ask Siri?
You know, Siri tell me this, Siri find me that. We're all good at getting you the answers.
Tell Siri I want you ready to go at 8 sharp each and every morning.
I don't understand
What don't you understand?
what you just said.
You don't understand be ready to go?
No. You said 8, right?
Yes.
8 like in the morning 8?
Yes, in the morning.
Yeah. That kind of doesn't work for me. Who gets up at 8?
I do.
I Skype with my French boyfriend in Paris until like 3 in the morning. I don't even get to Starbucks until like 10, where I order my grande chai tea latte, 3 pumps, skim milk, light water, 2% foam, extra hot but not too hot. So if it's okay, I work best in the morning at 10:45.
Wow. Amy, I don't think we're going to be a good fit.
Why are you so negative? I can sense your hostilities, and right now I am not feeling very safe. I've been here for over 5 minutes, and the only nice thing you have said to me was nice resume, which I typed all night for this meeting with you. You've given me no guidance, no validation, no encouragement, no supervision. Is there an HR director somewhere?
HR director?
Yes, I need to speak to someone. I may have to take off today as a mental health day.
Take the day off. Amy, look at me. You don't work here.
Are you firing me?
Okay, yes.
So that is the video. So it's a little funny and very exaggerated, right? But again, I would ask you guys to go to the chat box right now and put one, not two, one area for concern in this video if you were the interviewer. So I'll give you about 2 minutes to work on this activity. And I'll be looking at the chat box. Very good, Anna. So Anna said, I'm looking at the chat box right now. She is talking to him unprofessionally and treating him like a friend. And the big mistake is using your phone. Very, very good, Anna. It's very important that in an interview, you are very professional. So you want to make sure you know who you're talking to, and that interviewer deserves the same respect as you would like to get that respect, right? And yes, she is using her phone. Yes, Kevin, she is using her phone. I don't know if she's texting while she's interviewing, but that's a big no-no. Not as respectful as required. Yes. And there is this one big thing that is lacking in this particular conversation or interview. Anyone can think of that one. It starts with the letter L. She forgot to do this, and it starts with the letter L. She was talking, but did not. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to go with Bill first. I'm not even sure if she knew the job she was there to interview for. It's very important for everyone to research your position, your company, and all that. So good job, Bill. And Cicely, exactly. This is actually the word I am looking for. Listen. And Bill, perfect. Bill, listen. She never listened. So a lot of times when we are in an interview, we're thinking, I'm going to speak a lot. I'm going to sell myself and all that. So I'm going to talk, and talk. But you can't talk what makes sense if you didn't understand the question and you didn't really understand, the position, right? So usually, even if you did your research, the interviewer would provide you with information about the job, and he can't even give you a lot of information because you keep on talking. So listening is a skill. And you know what? I wasn't a good listener before too. I love to talk. And I had to learn how to listen to be successful and to be professional and to be respectful. So I love what you are all talking about in the chat box. And Anna said also she should learn all the resources that the job requires because then it doesn't make sense. Perfect. And the lack of professionalism, Cicely, very, very important. You got to be professional. And this video, I want you all to think about this video for the rest of the webinar and compare. So these are the things that we should be doing. These are the best practices. Would this really help me? Okay, so that's it for the video and our activity. Now, let's go to talk about things I need to know about virtual interviews. Okay. In-person interview. So Maria, you just said we're going to talk about virtual interviews. Why are we talking about in-person interview? We are because the best way to understand something is to compare it with similar or opposite kind, right? So in-person interview. If you have been in a job interview before, whether it's for internship or another, can you put in the chat box, put a smiley face or put yes in the chat box if you have had an interview before. Okay, Sean had an interview before. Okay, anyone else who has gone to an interview before, whether it's for an internship or for a real job? So Anna as well and Kevin. Okay, so there's a couple and Natalia too. So almost everyone has been in an interview. It can be nerve-wracking, right? So it's very important for us to learn what interview is all about. So let's start with the in-person interview. And Cicely said here, we never want to forget face-to-face values. And she has done virtual interviews too, but it's very important to have that in-person interview as well, because for me, my favorite is in-person interview. But because of the times now, we got to learn all types of interviews. So what makes an interview an in-person interview? Okay, very easy. Interviewee, interviewer, they are in the same physical location. So what does that entail then? Number one, you gotta prepare for that extra time to go to the location. You gotta dress up. You gotta think about the traffic. You're gonna actually find the actual location. I am not good with directions. So I usually would leave the house like 2 hours or 1.5 hours beforehand because I'm so afraid to be late. Imagine being late on your first day, and which is your interview date. Would you like to be late? What happens to your to that impression of the interviewers if you're late in your interview, right? So make sure in an in-person interview, you got to have that extra time. Easier to hear the questions because now maybe while you're listening to me, it's virtual. Maybe there are times that it's hard for you to hear what I'm saying. In an in-person interview, the proximity helps, so you can hear the questions better. There's less to know technical difficulties. It is also easier to make that personal connection with the interviewer. So if you're in an in-person interview, take advantage of the non-verbal cues. You want to be able to show them your enthusiasm. You want to be able to show them your authenticity and all of that. And make sure you have this eye contact. So that's in-person interview. Now, let's move on to the phone interview. So a phone interview is when the interviewer talks to the interviewee via a conference line or even a mobile phone now. So they do that now. So in a phone interview, you don't need extra time to go to the location. However, this is, I cannot stress this enough. Even though that's the case, you need to check the technicalities. You need to check, number one, is your phone charged, right? Are there going to be any technical difficulty? If you know that your carrier sometimes drops calls or oftentimes drop calls, maybe you should consider using a different phone at that time. Maybe borrow somebody else's phone. Maybe there's going to be incoming calls and that becomes a distraction. Maybe it's difficult to hear the questions because you don't see the interviewer and their lips while they're talking. You're just listening to them. And you know what? In a phone interview, it's harder to make a personal connection with the interviewer. And you know what? The nonverbal cues are not noticeable. So only the voice. So what you need to do with your voice, that is your nonverbal cue in a way, because your intonation very important. So to give you an example, if I was to talk to you like, "Hi, my name is Maria. I'm gonna give the webinar today." That's very different from, "Hi, this is Maria Obaldo. I'm so excited to give the webinar today. How do you feel?" There's a difference, right? So in a phone interview, your voice is very important. You got to make a connection. And you know what? In a phone interview, it's not really required to dress up because they won't see you. But I'm going to give you a tip. In a phone interview, I would still say dress up. You know why? When you dress up, you know, you're prepared, you feel more confident when you're dressed up. You know, when you know, like for today, to give you an example, you won't smell me, but I still put a perfume today because it makes me feel confident. You know, I still prepared for this webinar, even though you won't see me in person. So because I know I will be more confident. So a couple of tips. Now, let's move on to the virtual interview. So what is a virtual interview? It is when the interviewer talks to the interviewee via video conference software. Okay, and we're gonna give you some examples of these software later. In a virtual interview, there is no extra time needed to go to the location, so that saves you time. But it's very, very important to note that it doesn't mean that it's going to be virtual, that you do not prepare. To give you an example, a month ago, we conducted a couple of interviews virtually. Okay, and about 3 interviewees were not prepared. We can't hear them. They were using their phone. There was no contingency plan. The phone just like, we can't hear them. They can't hear us. Someone had the internet connection not working on the phone. Somebody did the interview during their lunchtime at work and they were in their car and there were like noises and all that. So think about those things in a virtual interview. So I hope you're jotting this down. Very important. Yes, you don't have to drive to a location in a virtual interview, but you got to do a couple of things. You want to check if your laptop, your phone, your desktop is charged or you have your cord with you. Okay? what if something happens with your internet connection? So you want to test your internet connections beforehand. Okay, there might be incoming device notification that may become a distraction. So imagine being interviewed and you have your Instagram open and notifications just keep popping and you're cling, 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 cling. So during an interview, so think about those things. So if you haven't thought about that, make sure you take note. It may be difficult to hear the questions, maybe because of the audio connection. That's why it's very important to prepare. And then it's also a little harder to make that personal connection with the interviewer. It's better than phone because you can at least see each other, but it's still harder or more difficult compared to an in-person interview. Okay, and for all of you, you still need to dress up for a virtual interview. Why? Because it's as good as an in-person interview. They see you, so you got to dress up appropriately. And background is just as important as your attire. So for all of you, you would see something, if you're looking at my video right now, I have a background. So I purchased this in Amazon and I use this a lot. If you don't want to purchase anything, most software actually have a virtual background. So number one rule is in the virtual interview is you got to think about your background because this is going to be your personal brand when you're being interviewed. And we're going to delve into this more in a bit. Okay? So again, take note of these things about virtual interviews. There's a lot of preparation that are needed in a virtual interview than most people think. Okay? So what are the common platforms used in virtual interviews? So these are a couple. So Zoom, I think it's the most popular at the moment, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, GoToMeeting, Skype, and Cisco WebEx. So what I'm going to ask all of you to do right now is, which amongst this platform are you most familiar with? Please type it in the chat box. Okay, Anna is most familiar with Zoom. We're using Zoom today. Okay, Sean is Zoom too, and Kevin. Okay, like I figured, Zoom is the most popular. Okay, so I'm glad that you are familiar with Zoom. If you are not familiar with a lot of these software, this is just a suggestion from me, especially the free ones. Like Zoom is free. Oh, Cicely, Google Meet and Zoom. Okay, so Zoom, Google Meet, for example, Skype, a lot of these ones have the free version. So you want to practice. Why is practicing with the platforms very important? Because trust me, to give you an idea, today, about 2 hours ago, I was practicing for this webinar using Zoom. I'm pretty familiar with Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and all of these platforms, but guess what? The person on the other side of the laptop cannot hear me, and I had to fix things. On the other hand, I can't hear her either. So even though I was familiar, I had to practice. So my suggestion, even though you're familiar with Zoom, most of you are familiar with Zoom, please practice with a friend or somebody you know beforehand. Test your audio, for example. Like audio is the number one thing that doesn't work during a presentation or an interview. So please practice beforehand. You're going to thank yourself after. Okay? So now, let's talk about the 5 things to prepare before your virtual interview. Just so you know, there's more, but I wanted to really focus on this 5 because we have limited time today. So if you are interested in learning more about things to prepare before your virtual interview, if you click here, and this PowerPoint will be available through your Career Services Department. We can share the references to you as well. And this is from Harvard Business School Online, which is an article from 2018. So you can read through it. But I want to focus on 5 things. Number 1 is to test your technology. Number 2, to set the scene and minimize distractions. Number 3, sit down prepared. Number 4, dress the part. And number 5, monitor your body language and make a connection. So I want you all to read through this 5 things. Which of these 5 things do you think you need work on? So let's say, is it the dressing part? Is it like you don't really prepare before an interview, if you can share that in the chat box. Again, out of this 5, which do you think you need the most help with, or that you need to remember before your interview? Preparation. Sean said preparation. Very, very important to prepare for an interview. Okay. Anyone else would like to share? Okay, so I guess only preparation. Now let's talk about all of these. And number 3, Anna said sit down prepared. So I guess we all need to be prepared, right? So let's move on. Let's talk about test your technology. Okay. 3 most important things in testing your technology. And you would thank yourself by doing this beforehand. Number 1, your internet. If your internet is not working, you can't have the interview. We literally lost like that one candidate because he finally gave up, like his internet is not working. And we tried to contact the candidate, and it's like the internet is not working. We're even willing to call you on the phone. But at that time, that candidate gave up because the internet is not working. If you tested earlier, you would have known that you had problems with the internet, right? Okay, good. And then web camera. Just so you know, web camera is important too. Most of our laptops or mobile phones, the camera here is on top in the very middle, right? So this is very important. Nothing should be blocking that web camera. Okay. Also, microphone audio device, and this is very, very important. And you would also notice that I'm using a headphone tip. Okay. This may save your interview. I had an interviewee before that can't hear us that much because he was using his mobile phone. And that time it's like he's like, I don't hear anything that you say. I hear it, but it's not too much. It's very faint. And he couldn't answer our questions because he can only hear a little bit. So I said, how about, do you have any headphones or earphones handy somewhere? And he actually had one in his room. So he had to get it from the other room, use it. And moving forward, we were able to talk and he was able to hear us and we were able to hear him well. So my suggestion, if you can, your phone, your laptop has a built-in mic in it, but sometimes it falters. So having something like this can help you a lot. So that's another tip that I hope that you use. Okay. Okay. Number 2, set the scene and minimize distractions. I'm going to repeat that again. Set the scene and minimize distractions. Number 1, determine the interview location. Remember my example earlier of that interviewee who interviewed inside his car, outside in the parking lot, and then we can hear all like the ambulance coming, and it was so hard to hear the interviewee, and it's so hard for him to hear us. So determine the interview location. My suggestion is in a place that is like you're minimizing any noise whatsoever. And it's very important, like to give another example, like when I do webinars like this, you wouldn't hear my dogs. I would ask my mom to get my dogs because my Chihuahua is going to be barking when the Amazon delivery person comes in. And it doesn't matter if it's here or the neighbors, my Chihuahua will do this. So imagine I will be distracted, right? So think about that. And also prepare your background. Again, if you're looking at my video right now, you would see that I purchased something from Amazon, or you can use a virtual background. Okay, if you don't know how to do that, practice with the software. If you're already using Zoom, Zoom has that ability to use a virtual background. Okay, I'm going to emphasize this. An interview is an opportunity for you to showcase your personal brand. Again, an interview is your opportunity to showcase your personal brand. Do you want your brand to be the dishes not done brand? Do you want your personal brand to be laundry has not been folded personal brand? You don't want that, right? You want to be you want your personal brand to be professional, enthusiastic, authentic, knowledgeable, all of those good things. And if you don't determine your interview location, if you don't prepare your backgrounds and eliminate possible noise, you are diminishing that personal brand, even though you're an amazing candidate. Okay? Number 3, sit down prepared. I am looking at this chat box, and most of you want to be prepared. And this is very important. Be focused, stop clicking. What does that mean? I know this is a virtual interview. You can have few devices with you right now, and you can be looking at answers, right? But sometimes there are questions that you need to research. So imagine if you didn't research about your company that you're interviewing for, and they ask you, do you think that our values align with your own personal values? And then you're here like typing. They can hear you clicking, and there's going to be a lag between your answer and the question. So I'm not saying that a couple of seconds is bad, because you need to think through before giving an answer, right? But it's very important not to, okay, you know what, give me a minute. I'm just going to look at your values and mission and vision. That's really not professional. Meaning to say, you did not do your research. It wasn't as important. You're giving a vibe that this interview is not as important for you, that you didn't prepare for it. Okay? And then number 2, print your resume. Can't stress that enough. And for all of you, like, okay, I don't like printing anything, totally fine. Have another device, maybe your iPad or another laptop, to have your resume in there. Trust me, when we are nervous, we can forget things. But when we have a resume in front of us, we can just look at it and provide information that we may have forgotten if we didn't have it in front of us. Okay, you might think, they should have my resume. I applied with my resume, submitted my resume. Why do I have to print my resume and repeat what is in the resume? You know what? This is a tip. Your resume being in front of you is going to help you reinforce, what you want the interviewers to know about you. And sometimes they didn't have time to look at your resume that much because they're interviewing a lot of people. Then it's a perfect opportunity for you to even show them, hey, look, I have my resume, and I can share with you that I did this, this, and that. These are my volunteer experience. These are my experience in this job, this and that. Okay. And number 3, this is very important. Practice your answers, but do not memorize verbatim. I'm going to repeat this. Please practice your answers, but don't memorize verbatim. There's no such thing as memorizing everything. There's no such thing as I know exactly all of the questions and I can memorize all of them. There's no such thing as that. Practicing your answers means that you practice questions that maybe you found in the internet, and we're going to have an activity later for this. These are like sample questions and then sample answers, ideal answers. When you practice your answers, you're going to be more comfortable later. That's how our brain works, is when you repeat things over and over again, when our brains would be more comfortable thinking about it later. But this is the thing. A lot of people think I should have just memorized like all the ideal statements because then I would sound very professional, smart, and cool. Trust me, you won't sound cool. You know how you would sound like? You would sound like a robot. So please do not memorize verbatim. For me, I memorize keywords. Keywords or phrases are different from memorizing the whole thing, like the whole paragraph. Last night, I was helping a friend in her first business presentation. It was like at 9:30 p.m. And you know what she did? And I love her. She memorized the whole presentation, and she was like, just imagine this, okay? Sit down prepared, be focused, stop clicking, print your resume, practice your answers, but don't memorize verbatim. Sounds like a robot. You don't want to sound like that. So very important, again, practice your answers, but don't memorize verbatim. Number 4, tip number 4, dress the part as you would an in-person interview. A virtual interview is the same as a phone interview or an in-person interview. It's just that it's virtual. They see you, but through the internet. So give it the same respect as you would an in-person interview. Professional attire. There's a lot of resources. It's like, I don't know what professional means. What if I go, I'm like overdressed? You know what the tip? You'd rather be overdressed than underdressed. There's a lot of resources that you can find in the internet that shows you what a professional attire looks like. And just so you all know, in the future, we will be preparing for other topics like how to dress up for an interview and all of that. So this is just like an introduction to what you should be thinking about. So again, this webinar is your starting point. You will be researching more to prepare for your next virtual interview. And what is a personal benefit, Maria? What is that? Earlier, I mentioned to you that I even put a perfume today. I put a little makeup on, and I dressed up for today's presentation. You know, I taught in the university. I've done hundreds of presentations, but I always get nervous. You wouldn't think I wouldn't, because this is my job, right? But you know, trust me, I get really nervous. But when I dress up, when I, do my hair a little bit, put a little makeup on, and dress professionally, you know what happens to me? There's this personal benefit. Like psychologically, I am more confident. So try that. If you haven't done this before, try dressing up for something and you would notice a difference. Okay? Next. Oh, thank you so much, Cicely. Yes. Okay. This is very important. Monitor your body language and make a connection. Monitor your body language and make a connection. Maria, what does making a connection mean in body language? I'm in an internet. Why do I have to think about that? So imagine this, okay? So I'm not sure if you're looking at me right now in my video, but I'm actually slouching right now. Imagine me giving this webinar and doing this. Monitor your body language and make a connection. It seems like I'm disrespectful to all of you. It's a virtual webinar. It's a webinar. It's virtual. But if I'm sitting like this, it doesn't look like I care. That I'm just like doing just because, right? So sit up straight, smile. I'm not saying like this, but smile enough, because a smile makes a difference. Trust me on that. And keep camera at the eye level. So imagine if the camera is way below and I'm like this, you can't see me. If it's way up and I'm here, you're trying to look at me. So the interviewer must be comfortable. So imagine if you are in the eye level, like this is your camera and you're looking at the camera, you know that even though it's a virtual interview, you can make that connection with the interviewer or interviewer. So a lot of people don't think about this. So take the time to work on your setup. Okay, make sure you do that. Stand out, share a personal story. Think about this. Imagine us recruiters. We are interviewing so many of you in a day or in a week. You got to stand out, right? You got to share your personal brand. And to stand out, one way to do that is, even though it's a virtual interview, please don't be scared to share that personal story. Don't go overboard though. You don't have an hour to share one story, but just enough. I'm going to give you an example. An example would be if you are asked, what is your greatest strength? If you say, I'm a team player, very, very important to share maybe a story of how in school, even if you haven't had any job experience, in school we did this. I had a member in a group that was ill at that day and didn't make it to our first group meeting. Instead of taking over her part of the project, I took the time to share notes on the first interview. And then the next time when she was feeling better, not only was she helpful, she also helped another group member who was also absent on the second meeting. So that tells me that what you're talking about being a team player is actually real because you have a personal story to share. And guess what happens as an interviewer? Most likely, I will remember your personal story more than a lot of other things you said in the interview. That's just a psychology thing as humans. Okay. Okay. So we talked a lot. So I'll give you a minute break to just kind of digest what we talked about. So I'll give you a minute. And then we'll go back at 4:42 and we're almost done. Okay. So if you need to drink water, please do so. If you need time to message us at the chat box, this is a perfect time as well. Okay, so we're back. Next part, what are the 3 most common interview questions, ideal answers? Okay, so for this part, I'd like you all to take the time to use a pen and paper. So if you have a pen and paper with you, or if you want to use a gadget, you can do that too, and answer these questions. Okay, why did you choose to interview with this company and for this position? What do you expect to gain from this internship, and what are your work expectations? What are your plans after completing this internship and graduating from school? So let me give you a context. Okay, let me give you a context. Let's assume you are a prospective candidate for a business analyst position at the water district. Okay, you're a business major, and these are 3 questions we're going to ask you. What will be your answer? And we're going to go over some ideal answers with you in a bit, and I want you all to compare your answers with the ideal answers. Again, I'll give you about 2 minutes to work on this. Note that if you click here, this is an Indeed article, you would have more samples of questions and ideal answers. Again, you have about 2 minutes to work on this. And for those of you who are watching only and not part of this webinar, maybe you are watching a replay of this webinar, you can still do this activity. It's very helpful so that you can compare, the answers, the ideal statements or ideal answers to your own answers. So we'll give you till 4:45. It's 4:44. I'll give you 1 more minute to work on your answers. And then let me look at the chat box if there are any questions so far. So we have a question with Sean. So we're going to go over the questions later. Okay. Good. Okay, so are you all ready to see what the answers are or ideal answers are? Okay, let's go to the first one. Let's talk about the first question. Why did you choose to interview with this company and for this position? I'm sure if you interviewed before, you must have remember this question. Okay. And before we go to the ideal answer, please know that there's a reason why we recruiters or in some of the hiring managers or all of the hiring managers ask these kinds of questions. When you are preparing for an interview, it's very important to think about the motivation behind asking these questions. For this particular question, we want to know as recruiters and as hiring managers, what motivates Sean or Cicely or Anna or any of you to interview for our organization? What do you all plan to learn as an intern? And are you looking for growth potential? These are the reasons why we ask this question. So let me read to you an ideal answer. I find that your company is innovative and values continuous learning. And my goal is to work in a forward-thinking company. Companies that consistently innovate often lead in their industries and constantly grow. I value continuous learning and I want to grow as a prolific business leader with an innovator. I believe your company in this position can help me achieve this. Maybe you're wondering, Maria, what if I don't talk that way? Oh no, I'm not good. I'm not going to be getting a good result in my interviews. It's not like that. This is something as an ideal answer based on the person that wrote this, right? So put a little bit of your personality in there while remaining professional, okay? Also, very, very important to know, did you answer all of the questions, like all the parts of the question, and did I hit on the motivation of the interviewer or worse by my answers? To give you an example in this one, this particular prospective candidate value continuous learning. See, values continuous learning. So that's the motivation, right? And he or she or they know that this particular company organization values innovation. So there's a match, there's a fit between the interviewee and the company. Okay, growth potential is what we're looking for in here. And the prospective employee or the candidate said, I want to grow as a prolific business leader. So that's an example. Did your answer match this, or was it similar? And if not, think about how you can improve your answer. Again, I'm not asking you to be a robot and sound like this. It's a balance between your personality, the right answer, which means right means appropriate for what they're looking for, okay? And professionalism, okay? And thank you, Anna, for sharing your answer, okay? Number 2, what do you expect to gain from this internship and what are your work expectations? When we ask this question, you know what we're trying to look for? Realistic goals, okay? And then second one, goals you expect to achieve, you know, or goals that we expect to achieve that you can achieve by working at, you know, the water district. Are your goals going to align with the tasks that we are expecting you to accomplish? So when we ask this question, think about these things. Oh, they're thinking about what kind of goals do I have when I work here? And maybe like if they have certain tasks for me, will my goal align with the task that I'm about to do? That's why research is very important. Before you go to the interview, please read the job description. You got to know the task you're about to do so that when they ask you about what do you expect to gain from this internship, you can actually answer the question appropriately. An ideal answer would be, my expectations involve being able to learn how to identify business problems, how to choose strategies to address these issues, and how to plan and execute the tactics needed to achieve these goals. By learning this, I can gain real-world experience of what it takes to drive business operations forward. Again, this is very, very important. I am not asking you to copy this, but something to this effect, okay? And last but not the least, what are your plans after completing this internship and graduating from school? We are looking for somebody with the potential for continued work at the company. We're looking for somebody who can apply their learned skills in school, in our organization, in the department. How are they going to do that? Okay, so this is an example of an ideal answer. After this internship, I plan to complete my final semester in college and apply leadership, project management, communication, and technical skills that I'll gain in my academic, volunteer, and extracurricular activities. My plans after graduation include pursuing a career as a business analyst for your company. Did you just see that? The prospective intern, my plans after graduation include pursuing a career as a business analyst for your company. You are now talking about the future. You're not just talking about now, that you plan to maybe work for a company in the future. What happens to us as a recruiter? We get excited that you actually are thinking even after school. So I hope that you like these kinds of questions and answers as well. Okay? Okay, part 2. The part 2 of our presentation is all YouTube, so I hope you like the videos. Again, this is coming from our LVVWD channel.
I rely on water every day, and I don't want to have to worry about it.
It's an essential part of nearly everything we do at ARIA.
My job depends on it. Lives depend on it.
We're all connected through water, and you're invested in one of the most advanced water systems in the country, meeting demands 24 hours a day. Together, we're ensuring a safe and reliable water system for our future.
Okay, so that's like an introduction to who we are. If you're wondering what we do for a living, we provide water to the community. To give you an idea, we started serving the community by providing reliable, sustainable water in 1954 for about 45,000 people or residents. You know how many people we serve now? 1.5 million people. So very proud of what we do here at LVVWD.
I rely on water every day, and I don't want to.
Okay, so this is the second video. That's our tagline. Very, very important to note that our mission, vision, and values are very important for us. In fact, if you're wondering, Maria, I'm a little confused. Like, who is SNWA, Springs Preserve, and LVVWD? We're actually 3 companies, but we are one team. So we work together. The Las Vegas Valley Water District hires all the employees for the 3 companies because we're one team. So our team hires interns for SNWA, the same as for Springs Preserve and LVVWD proper. Okay, so Maria, you mentioned about mission. So we provide world-class water service in a sustainable, adaptive, and responsible manner to our customers around the valley. And there is something called rises. So you've noticed in the video that we had a couple of words that you've seen. And if you want to remember, so let's say you are interviewing for one of our positions and we ask, How do you think your personal values will align with our mission, vision, values? Remember to use this, rises, like rising sun. So rises. R stands for respect for people. I stands for integrity. Okay. S is for service. E for excellence, and S for sustainability. If you remember those 5 and you're interviewing for us, that's really a good tip. Trust me, it would help you in your interview. So I hope that helps. Okay. And then the next video, and we're almost done. And this is Mr. Dave Rexing.
I'm a chemist by training, and I've been with the organization for over 40 years. I started the compliance laboratory and then moved to research and development in the year 2000. What I find most interesting about the young professionals is just the enthusiasm that they bring to the job. New ideas, fresh ideas, that is almost contagious, I find, and it makes life so interesting. When young people have new ideas and they interact with an older person like myself who brings some experience and structure to it, you can get 2 ideas coming together to make a fantastic idea. That is what happens in synergy when you bring these 2 groups together. In my group, not only do we have postdoctoral researchers, we have a lot of interns that come into our group. So they come and go all the time. They're constantly bringing in fresh ideas. What I find interesting about the young professionals and what I think is most beneficial to the organization is when they bring those fresh ideas, that really is the origin of innovation. And any organization has to have innovation to succeed and move ahead and improve.
Okay, so I hope that you appreciate that. So our internship program is amazing, not because I work in this department, but because I know this is an opportunity for every one of you to taste what it is like to work in our organization. So even if it's not with us, if you're thinking about, I wanted to be an intern because, think about how to apply what you've learned in school in the real world. Our internship program is accepting resumes. So if you don't see any jobs currently open for interns, I will be providing our internship email to all of you in a bit, in a couple of slides after, so that you can send your resume. So we might be reaching out to you if something pops up, okay? So our internship program is open to students who are taking at least 6 credits. If you're an undergraduate, if you're a master's student, you can take a minimum of 3 credits to be considered an internship program. And yes, it's a paid position. All our intern positions are paid. And we'll discuss the salary and all of that during your interview, but it will also be on the job description. Okay? So, this is where you're going to find our current opening. So you can either go to lvwaterjobs.com, or you can go to linkedin.com/company/LVVWD. And these are our current openings right now. You won't see an internship opportunity, but in the future, you would see this in the same place as our full-time position. So now you know where to apply, right? Don't apply in any other website that you see our internships posted. Please apply here, or if you have a handshake account and all that, we work with your career services department as well. But if you want to apply directly, these are the links. Okay, so part 3 would be Q&A. I've seen a lot of questions right here. Well, I know Sean has a question about, I know it's a little dated, but do interviewers still do mail interviews? I've not heard of that at the water district. It's very rare for companies nowadays to do a mail type of interview, a mail-in interview. And I can research more if this is something done in some of my, I'm going to ask around my colleagues in other industries. But to my knowledge, Sean, it's not something that we are doing at the moment at the water district. And then I think we have time for 2 more questions. Okay, thank you, Sean. And then I think we answered most of the questions earlier. I'm looking at Noelle. Did I miss any questions?
No, I'm not seeing
no?
any. I'm not seeing
Okay,
any additional questions. It looks
good.
like you got them along the way.
Okay, good. Isn't that great?
It is.
Awesome. This is what happens when you're talkative. And for the shy ones, for the timid ones like me, you wouldn't think I am, but I'm timid. You can type it in the chat box later, or you can email us your questions. I'm going to show you our email address right now. Right here, internship.program@lvvwd.com. Again, internship.program@lvvwd.com. Maybe you have more questions about interviewing skills, resume, how to make a resume, anything under that. Feel free to send an email. Maybe you want your resume to be submitted to us, internship.program@lvvwd. I want to take this opportunity to thank you all for being so active. I didn't really expect for you to be typing in the chat boxes. I'll be reading through the chat box as well later and see if I missed anything. And I thank you, Noelle, and the rest of the Career Services Center staff at Nevada State College. I hope that you learned something from this webinar.
Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you. I am going to stop recording